Bun găsit, sunt Adrian Boioglu. Astăzi la GoNEXT.ro avem un invitat care nu mai are nevoie de nicio prezentare. Este un invitat care a reușit să facă ce mulți dintre români nu au reușit, ce anume să promoveze România în afara granițelor ei. Invitatul meu de astăzi este omul care a reușit să surprinde imagini atât de frumoase cum poate mulți dintre noi nu am făcut-o până acum. Este jurnalist, este britanic. Bun venit, Charlie Ottley. Welcome to the show, Charlie Ottley.
Bună seara.
Bună seara. You do speak Romanian.
Vorbesc puțin.
Puțin.
Înțeleg mai mult.
Okay. So why are you afraid to speak Romanian?
Pentru că foarte dificil pentru mine. I'm not very good at languages. I mean, I failed languages at school. I only managed to even get a rudimentary understanding of French. And I do understand Romanian to hear conversations. I pick up most of it, but I'm always making mistakes when I try to speak, and I hope in the next year or two I'll be able to speak fluently. But
after all you've seen in Romania, you should be able to speak it and
understand.
Yeah,
but I'll tell you why that isn't the case, because you guys, as a nation, are so good at languages. I don't have to be. The problem is that so many people in Romania now speak English. It's really tricky because I can have obviously a more in-depth conversation speaking my own language than if I try to express myself in Romanian. So whoever speaks less of that language will be the one who ends up speaking the English. And for me, most Romanians only under 50 tend to have a pretty good understanding of English.
That's true. Well, you do have some other way in which you express, and that's the pictures and the videos and everything that you've done in Romania to promote Romania outside its borders. Yeah. So my first question would be, what was the trigger for you? What made you come here and decide, you just say one day, I need to do this. I need to show everyone in the world how beautiful Romania is?
I think it kind of worked organically. It was a process. When I first came in 2010, it was as a fact-finding mission with a friend of mine who wanted to show me basically what Scotland used to look like 500 years ago, before they killed the last wolf and tore down all the forest for shipbuilding, world wars, armadas, that kind of thing, and clearances. And now Scotland, which used to be 2/3 of it was covered in forest, the Great Forest of Caledon, it's now what environmentalists would describe as a soggy desert. Yeah, it's very beautiful, but it's bleak, and it's a monoculture environment. It's got very, very few species, and all that forest is gone. Whereas Romania still has it, but it's in danger of losing these things, just like Scotland did, if we're not careful, because of the lack of sustainability. A sustainable management of resources. It's terrible. I think it's approaching 3 hectares per hour of forest that's coming down. I read a frightening statistic that almost 50 million cubic meters of wood estimated coming out of this country per year. And it's somewhere like 19 maximum is the sustainable limit. A lot of this is illegal. And there's no way that we're going to have these landscapes in a generation's time. I mean, they'll be hugely depleted, even if we try to conserve and sustainably manage them as is. I felt there's a real cause here, and I wanted to make wild carpavia, and we wanted to show how beautiful Romania is, how unique, having the last great mixed forest in the whole of Europe, 2/3 of its apex predators, its wolves, its lynx, its bears. And also this incredible biodiversity that comes with this sort of landscape, especially the hay meadows, the traditional farming techniques that ensure we have all this culture, the mushrooms and the wildflowers and everything that we've lost everywhere else. Here it still exists.
Was there something in particular that attracted your attention when it comes to Romania? Was it the people, the food, the landscape?
It was, as I said, it was the landscapes. It was the nature. It was the abundance of biodiversity. It was the beautiful forests and the cliffs and the mountains, and the fact that there are bears. The fact you've got 2/3 of Europe's bears here. I mean, it's pretty incredible for me, coming from England, where the largest predator is a badger or a fox. you know, the largest carnivore roaming loose in the countryside. And here, you know, my partner's father had a bear rummaging through the bins. He makes palinka, and we were brewing up. He was brewing up some fruit to ferment, obviously, for the next stage of the process. And the bears have been coming down, particularly because it's been such a long winter. And this bear was taking the lid off the barrels and helping itself to the fermenting mulch. And he got quite a taste for the alcohol, I think. He came down a second night and then became, you know, a confirmed drinker. And then 4 nights later, he's still coming. It is a problem, you know, it is a problem. And as we start to erode their habitat more and more, we come into contact more with these animals. And actually, they're the ones that lose, not us. So, you know, there is that.
You were decorated by the president. Was that a surprise for you?
Well, I haven't been yet. I'm hoping that it's still happening. I'm not sure. I haven't heard anything.
It's going to happen.
Well, I'm keeping my fingers quietly crossed. But it was big news to me because I heard murmurs about it and then nothing for about 3 months. And I presumed that they thought better of it and thought there's probably someone a bit more deserving of this honour. And just thought, right, okay, that's that. Never going to hear him anymore. And then my friend Christy Tabara phoned up and said, Charlie, you know, well done, congratulations. I was, for what? You know, and he sent me all these links, and it was in all the press. And so that was the first I'd heard of it, was from friends. And it's a huge honour. I'm so thrilled. I still don't quite, you know, haven't managed to process it exactly. Because I first of all, I wish my parents were still here. You know, because I lost them 20 years ago now, and my father, 1996, and he would have been hugely proud. And it's times when something like that happens to you, you think of them, and you just wish they were there. And I'd like to think they're smiling down. You know, there's still some part of them remains to actually feel proud. But for me, it is a huge honour, and that's another reason you see that I'm here, because people have valued what we've done, and since 2010, and we made an impact with World Cup Adia, and then we got to do 2 more, and we were having more of an impact, and it just continued because I had the chance, the huge privilege to do something good, and that's something I've always dreamt of doing since I was a kid. I wanted to be an environmentalist. I wanted to go and sit on boats with Greenpeace and you know, fight off whalers, and then you go to university, and then you grow up, and then you think, well, the world isn't, you know, that perfect, and I have to make a living, and you start going into the system, and these dreams and aspirations tend to leave us. You know, it's interesting. I'm also a poet, and kids, you know, write poetry, but when they get older, they stop believing in that, and they start writing poetry. But most kids will write poems, aged, you know, 15 or 16, they drop it, and they also want to change the world. And when they get to 20, they just want to make some money. And so this brought me back to that feeling of being an idealist again. You know, I actually did something that mattered to some people, and that was the most amazing feeling. I mean, it made me get out of bed in the morning and actually feel like I was on a mission and I had something to do. I mean, just something that mattered. And so that's why I'm still here, because I've been a presenter for the Travel Channel for, you know, 12 years, and I was just encouraging people to extend their carbon footprint, which doesn't really help the world very much, and not give anything back. And now, yes, okay, I'm encouraging people to come here and see Romania, but also to take an interest in this country and to encourage the people here to preserve and protect the things that matter, that make Romania unique. And it's a huge privilege to be useful. We all want to be helpful. The best feeling that we have as human beings is when we are able to give something of value to others around us. And you asked me why I'm still here. That's the reason. I don't need any other reason.
How do you follow up on a tremendous project like Wild Carpathia? I mean, you know that you've done something so beautiful and that had a big effect on people, Romanian and people from other countries. How do you follow up on that?
First of all, you never really know whether you're going to have an impact or not. You hope you do. You give the very best of yourself. You commit as much of your energy as you can muster to make it the best thing you can do, each new project. As a journalist as well, you're only as good as your last story. Okay, so you know this. So, or your last interview. So you have to keep raising the bar, upping the ante. And you know, we did Wild Carpathia, and I thought, okay, let's go back to what I used to do with the Travel Channel, but let's create which was a Flavors of series. You know, I did flavors of Peru, flavors of Greece, flavors of South Africa, flavors of Colombia, and I went around the world doing, you know, Scotland, doing the definitive travel series on each country, and I thought, well, let's change the style and let's look at all these places that aren't normally promoted, you know, away from the well-trodden path, and do flavors of Romania. And to make it a bit more appealing to the young, let's throw a Harley Davidson into the mix and do a bit of give it a bit of a Top Gear feel, make it a little irreverent as well as making serious points, try and chuck some comedy into it, and see what happens. And that sank almost without trace. I mean, it went out on a number of channels. It went out on TVR, it went out on Canal D, and that was in 2017. And I was hoping that it might have a big impact, you know, because we got quite serious about certain things like Bailey Herculane, like the devastation above Borșa on the Maramureș border with a huge amount of hundreds of kilometres of like totally illegally logged forest, millions and millions of euros taken illegally. You can even see it from space, that's how bad it is. Mm-hmm. I thought this might get an even bigger response than World Cup. Not a bit of it. You know, Flavors of Romania, what? You know, no one had heard of it. Very few people watched it. And then Netflix took it last year, and suddenly it was no longer, oh, you're the guy that made Wild Carpathia, you're the guy that did Flavors of Romania. And I was overwhelmed. We were completely blown away by the response, but most importantly, not just by people of a certain age, like myself, but also young people. And I mean, people coming up to me in supermarkets wearing a mask and saying, could we take a photograph? My daughter's a huge fan and my son's a huge fan. How old are they? 12 or whatever. So, you know, that was for me one of the most amazing and rewarding experiences that finally, you know, this show went out in the right medium and it reached young people and it made them think, hopefully, a little bit about what's important in this country and what we need to protect, you know, and how we need to save the cultural identity of Romania instead of buying wholesale into the West.
Mm-hmm. Your next big project is about the Danube Delta,
yeah.
or the Danube, not necessarily the Delta.
Well, it is the Delta. We called it Wild Danube, but it is basically the Delta because obviously, you know, if you do the whole Danube, where do you stop and where do you start? For me, this is the important one because the Delta is a unique place and it's a jewel in the crown of Romanian tourism. Basically, you're looking at a lot of wonderful things about Romania. You know, you've got this, as I said, the largest mixed forest in Europe. You've got 2/3 of the apex predators. You've got this. And you've got crafts, the hospitality, the cultures. There's so many cultures, so many different people living here. You know, from the Hungarians to the Saxons to the Lipovans, and I can go on. And then the smaller cultures is like 20, 30, maybe more. I don't know. And so it's a very culturally rich and diverse country. But the Delta itself is a very, very special selling point, I think, because it's the largest wetland in the whole of Europe. Mm-hmm. It basically Romania is the custodian of this Delta that runs through many European countries, and, you know, big countries, and one of the oldest trade routes we have in Europe. You know, the spice route goes right next door. And it's not really promoted internationally. You know, the government have never hitherto done much to promote it. And yet, as I said, it's a really big thing for Romania. I mean, it's the Amazon of Europe. Like we say, the Carpathians here is the Yellowstone of Europe. You've got Yellowstone and you've got the Amazon. You know, one country. It's incredible, and lots of languages and lots of crafts and cultures and traditions. I mean, this should be one of. I think Romania could be one of the most popular countries for tourism in Europe, not Italy, not Spain.
Would you say it's not promoted enough, or
it's not promoted in the right way, and particularly the Delta is not promoted internationally at all, really.
Okay.
and we need to address that. But we, alongside, hand in hand with the promotion, we need to protect as well, because just as I said earlier, with the forests coming down, we're also having this rash of illegal constructions that are popping up all over the place. People are not following the regulations. They're building more than 2 stories. They're not using the right materials. There's a reluctance to use reed. I understand this. I have a house in a small village in Hampshire in England, and I have reed on the roof. Okay? Mm-hmm. They say it's Norfolk reed, but I suspect it's probably from here. You know, I doubt it came from Norfolk, to be honest.
Well, that's a good roof. Right?
Yeah. But it's nevertheless, it's exactly the same as what you see on that roof, on that building right there, or the one above us. So, but it only lasts 15, 20 years, okay? So that's why people don't want to build with it. They'd rather put, I don't know, Bilka tiles on the roof or whatever. But you're destroying the cultural integrity when you do this. And I really want to try to encourage people. I mean, first of all, everyone in the Delta is entitled to harvest reed for free, because that's part of being a resident here. But also, you know, respecting the traditions, because that's what's going to enable tourism to flourish in the future. We have to respect the cultural traditions in each area in order to make it viable for tourism, especially for cultural tourism.
How do you approach a new project like that? How do you make your plans in order to film and get the beauty and the language and the food and talk about all of that in such a manner that everyone from England, USA, or maybe Asia can understand it and appreciate the value of what you've trying to get and make it in such a way that can be funny, maybe in a way, or
quirky or engaging.
Exactly.
You have to keep people's interest. Well, it's, for me, you know, as a poet as well, it's kind of like putting together a poem when I'm writing a poem. You can't record or document everything. You have to pick and choose selectively, and the more you discover, the more frustrating that process becomes. But I always think of, not that I'm likening myself to Picasso, but I always think of the way he used to paint, because he did some sketches. We had one hanging on the wall at the school I was at, and very firmly screwed into the wall with several alarm systems. But it was of an old man, and there were only about 4 lines. And he only used 4 lines, and you had this impression you could actually tell you what age he was, probably what he liked for breakfast. I mean, it was so descriptive. You just envisaged completely the personality, but it was the most Spartan drawing. It was so minimalistic, but it captured the essence of the whole. A few brush strokes, and the more you add, the more you take away. So what you have to do when you embark on a project like this is you can only give a flavour or an impression. You can't cover everything, so you have to decide, okay, how do I capture the soul, the spirit, like he did with that drawing. And that, you don't need to have too much in it, but you just have to have enough diversity and enough beauty and enough as well heartache and struggle, you know, the people here and the winter and all. You just need to give people a feeling that inspires them, and that's what brings people. I mean, there's such a thing as too much information, so we're not covering. There'll be people who say, and they say this every time, why didn't you put this in, and why didn't you cover that? We can't. You have to be brutal when you make your selections, because if we don't devote enough time to each feature, then we don't do it justice.
Absolutely.
So, you know, I'd rather have like 14 or 15 really good features within the 1 hour than 30 that are just boom, and you're never really fully engaged.
How long does it take to prepare such a project?
It takes about 3 or 4 months of preparation and thinking and research and going and visiting places and speaking to people and having meetings. And also, you know, there's the fundraising part, which is vital, unfortunately.
Where do you get your funding for this
Well,
kind of project?
we're very lucky on this project. I think it's because, you know, we've proven with Flavours and Wild Carpathia that we've had an impact and we've made a difference. And now it's much easier than it used to be to find sponsors. And there's also a move towards CSR within companies in this country. They want to give back, especially foreign companies. They're coming here. It's not all about taking and making money from Romania. You have to give something back. So we try to encourage, you know, these companies as much as possible to get involved with charities or to get involved with a project that's going to help. We're very fortunate that Unilever and OMV Petrom, Noble Heart Foundation and Dacia, who very kindly gave us a crew mobile so we can actually travel.
How many people do you have in your team?
We actually only have a core. We have 3 of us. We multitask, but we also have people who do the colouring, sound mix, the music. So we have, and then we have a team, for example, now we have a really, really good team who are doing the wildlife for us. Because whilst we kind of have to be jack of all trades, in order to achieve the high standard and work within a budget constraint, we do now have a bit more leeway. And so I'm really proud we've got a fantastic team doing wildlife, and that enables us to make it more of a kind of a nature documentary as well, and combine
I've heard that you are trying to get shots of the Danube Delta in all 4 seasons.
Well, certainly 3.
Okay.
Because I don't think we're going to be able to do the autumn here. But the autumn here it's not mixed forest like it is in the Carpathians. I mean, it is. There are aspects of that, but the autumn to me, I would love ideally to have put it in, but we need to have the film ready for National Romania Day. So that means basically wrapping filming in kind of August. Because the rest of the time is going to be spent going through what will be thousands of shots, literally thousands, and we have to watch them all to the end, as I'm sure you know with the editing process.
Absolutely. How long does it take for you to edit and then release the movie?
Well, I mean, the editing will take about 7 or 8 weeks minimum to upwards to 3 months. I mean, that's just the first, that's for us to do the edit, then there's the colouring, the sound mix, and you know, then we re-edit. I tend to, what I have a problem with is actually, because there's so much great stuff, I tend to end up with a film that's about 1 hour and 35 minutes long, and then I have to cut it down to 45 minutes, which for me takes about 5 or 6 attempts.
Will you release a longer version?
Version, we ended up with White Carpathia, we had version 10 of White Carpathia, wow. Right? So that's how difficult and how precious it is. And what do you keep and what do you throw away? What do you leave for no one else to ever see again? And what do you include? You know, it's a terror. Just heartrending. I hate it. You know, it's the cutting room floor. But you have to do this, you know, commercially for the project to have space for the advertisements in between and for people to take it. But we will probably do a feature length as well. Maybe, you know, if people want to watch it, the long version, which we'll probably put out at some point. You know,
that's going like what,
festivals,
an hour and a half, or
probably an hour and 20 minutes.
Okay.
And then the one that you'll see on Digi Network and National Romania Day will be probably about 48 to 52 minutes, somewhere between there.
Would you like to see it on Netflix or on TV?
I would love to, obviously.
Or on DVD.
That's a rhetorical question, I'm sure. We would love to see it on Netflix. We also want to have it on DVD. As I said, we're very fortunate with having OMV Petrom as one of our partners, because they have quite a lot of gas stations, as we know. And you know, my dream is if they are able to make the DVDs available in the petrol stations for people that haven't actually watched it on telly. Because if you don't have it on Netflix is easy, because you can just click on it and watch it any time, and it's there. But you know, while it's only going out on television, if you miss that slot, it doesn't come around again. And for people to be able to buy the DVDs and show them, and also we want to give DVDs free to kids in schools. So the idea is we'll sell them, to recoup production costs and things, but we'll also print out enough to be able to give them for free to schools across the country, because you know, children are learning from our films. We've seen this in universities and schools, and learning about their country, and I think it's very important to foster that love of nature and that appreciation of culture, like I said, that kids naturally have, cement it so they don't abandon it when they get older.
I know you have a great partner in the Danube Delta Association here.
Yeah.
What do you think about the local authorities or the companies that are here in the Danube Delta? How do they help you in making this a better experience for you and for your team?
Well, as you know, Catalin and his team have been helping us a lot. You know, we've also had lots of other people who are you know, being really kind and putting in their input, because we're here to learn. You know, I have to come up with some conclusions, and I have to offer some potential solutions to you know, sustainably take the Delta forward. You know, that's the idea, is to say, right, okay, this is how beautiful it is. These are some problems. These are, you know, the key issues here that we need to resolve in order to preserve and protect the Danube Delta for future generations. And that's a big responsibility, because it's very convoluted. You know, you've got 7 agencies running the Danube Delta, you know, 7 different agencies, and there's not really enough communication between them all, I think. And it's very hard, therefore, to achieve consensus and to take things forward. And also then you've got mayors in different communities, there are different political affiliations, and yet you need them all to work together, again, to achieve a kind of a consensus, to enforce regulations where necessary, to stop people building, you know, devastatingly horrible buildings that are actually, you know, savaging the landscape, and actually protecting and preserving it. And encouraging sustainable development, and you know, also tourism. You know, there are villages, as I mentioned before, there are villages in, you know, like Letia, for example, Svištovka, where they're just, people are leaving. I mean, there's only 4 families in Svištovka, and there's no money to be made there from agriculture anymore, and there's no money to be made from also, there's no living to be made, not money.
Tourism is the only way, it's the only hope for them.
Yeah, I mean, fishing doesn't really work for them, and as we know, you can only fish scrumbie at the moment, so it's not looking good. And there's so much poaching that it's very hard to envisage a sustainable management of resources of the fish, because just people are too greedy and they're making money. And
when will we see this movie?
Well, National Romania Day. It's coming out. So
in 2021.
Yeah, this year. So
Great.
it'll be ready for Christmas. But I think, as you said, tourism is the answer for a lot of places here. But the right kind of tourism, not kind of cheap tourism. Yeah, we've had enough of that in this country, and it devalues the brand. Romania needs to raise its game, and we need to appeal to a different kind of traveller. We want the cultural tourists that will come and afford to be able to come from all over the world, because Romania has something unique. If you knock everything down and do it cheap and pile it high, then you won't have these kind of people coming, because it'll just not be particularly special anymore.
I know Romanians truly appreciate your work. What was the reaction outside Romania? Did you see something like, I didn't know Romania was this beautiful?
Yeah. I mean, we've had loads of people saying that. And you know, with the BBC campaign we ran last year, we had 91% uptake of people who watched that advertisement, or those 4 films that we made, wanting either to come to Romania or recommend it to their friends. That's 91% of the people who viewed the ads that we made, which is basically that it's not only the largest international campaign to promote Romania abroad, you know, across Europe, America, and the Middle East, but also I think one of the most successful. And people have, you know, we've had loads and loads of people saying to us and writing to us saying, "Wow, you know, I had no idea. I want to come." And I'm bringing friends here every year, and they're coming here and they're blown away by it. And pretty much every single person I've brought here has come back again for another visit and another visit. And they're all becoming regulars, you know?
Okay. So, tell us a few words about yourself. What do you... what's your favorite place in Romania? What is your favorite food, maybe, in Romania?
Well, I can answer my favorite place right now, because that's easy. It's home.
Where is home for you?
In Šerna. Okay. In the mountains, and we've built we've restored a traditional old wooden house, and it's really stunning. It's in a little valley, and it's got an incredible view, and behind us is the Piazza Crayola National Park. So we have bears roaming along the fence, And the idea behind it was to try to take, you know, a dilapidated, old, traditional style building, wood, you know, with shitsar on the roof, and show people that you can restore, you know, bunica or bunicaus and make it fit for modern living, and encourage people to move out of the cities and come and revitalize these communities. And the only way to really do it is to show people is to do it yourself. So we've done that. We had a lot of people following us, and it's
how often do you get to go home?
Well, not very much at the moment, but I don't mind because I've had enough snow, and we knew it was going to be cold, but this winter's been particularly long, and it was wow, you know, for the first month it was like, wow, every day's like Christmas, you know, and it was tremendously romantic, and you know, we had to go out and, you know, I had to chop the wood and fill up this, you know, the Juana and I did the central heating system. We took it in turns, you know, all through the day until, you know, the last load to keep the house warm before we went to bed, because we knew it was going to get down to -20. Wow. And that's all been really fun, and I love that lifestyle. Okay, I mean, I've been, you know, out there delivering cows. I mean, we have a barn with 6 cows, and I was literally, you know, in the cold, the steam and the blood and the sweat, pulling the calf out of its mother. So all of that is good, but the winter has just kept going this year, and I'm really pleased that we're not there. We're doing this project. We're down here. It's warm, and we're filming, and we're creating something beautiful. And we go back probably for the next 2 or 3 months. It'll be kind of a week here or a week and a half here, and maybe a few days back there, and then we come back, because there's a lot to do.
What is your next big project after Delta?
We are going to, we'll probably do some little projects. Like last year we did a film for Kavazna County, we did a film for, we did the BBC films, of course. And the Kavazna one did well. I'm pleased to say it's had over 1 million views on YouTube.
Wow, congratulations.
And it was a challenge because Kavazna is the smallest county in Romania, but we were able to find so many incredible things to see and film. I'm really proud of that film, because it was 10 minutes. It was originally only going to be 6 or 7, but we just found so much to include that it ended up being 10. And we made a 1-minute version as well, of course. But we'll probably be doing some films for, you know, councils and regions, and promoting different parts of the country. But then I think the next big thing after this will be Flavours 2, Season 2. I'm very happy that as I said, being the most watched documentary on Netflix last year, that Netflix will probably take Season 2. There's no real reason why they wouldn't if it was like the most successful one. So I think we can pretty much guarantee that will be the case. We just need to find sponsors to actually help us produce it, because obviously we have to fund it. But we will also, I'm sure, get some help from the channels, because it was screened last time on Canal D, on DG, on TVR, and I'm sure, you know, given the fact it's been a success, they'll take it. So we'll get everyone to hopefully screen it as well, and we'll show some more beautiful places, inspire people to go to even more distant and remote locations, and look at more recipes and see more traditions and celebrate Romania again, but, you know, with totally new stories.
Well, getting back to my first question, apparently there is a recipe for success for you, because you're trying to get all these beautiful places and show them to everyone in the world, and that is a recipe for success for you. It works. It actually works. Romanians appreciate it. People from other countries get to see the beautiful places and people and traditions and everything that's in here in Romania.
Yeah, and it's tremendously satisfying. I mean, that's the gift. It boils down to what you put out, what you give. The universe tends to respond. You know, what you put out is what you get back. And if you give, and you give of yourself and your heart and your passion, and you know, and try to do something that matters, you know, you get it back. It comes back in many different ways, and it's such a rewarding mission, you know, for us to find different ways to achieve these goals. We wake up in the morning, we always have things to do and new ideas, and you know, there's never a shortage.
Charlie, thank you so much for being here.
Mulțumim frumos.
Cu plăcere. Thank you for everything you've done, and I'm really looking forward to seeing your next movie about the Delta, because I've seen you around, I've seen you working, and it's hard to see and to decide what's gonna make the cadron floor or not, and I'm truly interested in the way you look at things, because it's a different perspective, but turns out it's a very good one.
Well, it's always sometimes easier to see. We have an expression that you can't see the wood from the trees. And as a foreigner coming here, it's enabled me to have an insight that's different and have a perspective that's a little bit more detached, and to see things in a different way. And I'm not saying it's of more value or less value, it's just different. And I think that can be helpful, you know? So that's what I'm banking on, and that's what we try to do.
Congratulations for doing it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Charlie. Doamnelor și domnilor, vă mulțumim că ne-ați urmărit. Charlie Ottley este una dintre persoanele care a reușit să promoveze România la nivel înalt, în afara țării, și o face foarte bine. Așa cum ați văzut, urmează un film despre Delta Dunării, pe care eu personal abia aștept să-l văd, pentru că sunt convins că această zonă merită și are nevoie de promovare și merită promovarea făcută de Charlie Ottley, așa cum el știe mai bine să o facă. Eu sunt Adrian Boioglu și vă doresc o zi mai bună.